Right, good afternoon everyone. So I'm going to kind of whiz through because this obviously wasn't planned. So I've got a presentation I've put together, so if I do skim a slide, apologies. But yeah, so just want to give you a little bit background about plug-in adventures and the Leaf ATV as it's been dubbed around the world now. So plug-in adventures, speaking from the same perspective as Lynn, is basically my passion. I discovered electric vehicles back in 2011, and I went and did all 3 UK capital cities in 4 days in a Nissan Leaf, and at that point there was probably about, 100 chargers in the entire country. So it was a bit of a baptism of fire on electric vehicles, and I knew nothing about electric cars at that point, just wanted to give it a go and see what it was all about, and I was hooked. And what I found through that was on social media, everybody engaged and so many questions came from doing that trip. And I realized it was a great way to engage with the public on their level and to dispel a lot of the myths along the way. So from there, I decided to do a lot more electric vehicle adventures, and it brought me up to 2017. So a lot of people don't know, I actually worked for a long time in the oil and gas industry, which causes a bit of conflict. People wonder why an electric car owner works in the oil and gas industry. But from there, I was unfortunately, through the downturn, made redundant. And I decided to basically put everything I had into following my passion. And I bought a 30 kilowatt Nissan Leaf, as you see here. There is some slight modifications to it. The wheels are just for aesthetics, but we raised the suspension slightly. We stripped the entire back of the car out, and this was to give us storage room, because this was our hotel for the next, 3 months, basically. And we fitted a nice roof rack, and we put aluminium plate just underneath the front, and that was to protect the charger, inverter, and motor from all those lovely rocks and potholes and everything out in Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan, as we were going to find out. So this is our route. The Mongol Rally starts in Goodwood Racing Circuit, and 300 cars pretty much every year for the last 14 years have taken part in this rally. You are completely unsupported, you choose your own route, and the idea behind it is you're supposed to have a car that's no bigger than 1 litre, and it's got to be really rubbish. I was going to use another word, but I won't do that. So it's got to be really rubbish, and the idea is you break down, and you engage with the locals, and you have an adventure. So I've known about this rally for about 6 years. So when I decided to do this, I thought, the Leaf falls perfectly into this. Every 80 to 90 miles, we're going to stop and have to charge this car. So one, we're going to engage with the locals a lot more than what the petrol car and diesel car users will. So we're going to have an amazing journey. But the car already has 4 or 5 major working components. There's less to break down. So for me, an electric vehicle was the perfect car to take on this adventure. Some people thought differently. So I won't go too much into Europe, because we know we have a vast charging infrastructure, rapid charging infrastructure in Europe. A lot of people have reported issues driving through Europe and chargers not working, etc. But most of the charging infrastructure for us worked. There was one situation in Germany where we had a rapid charger that didn't work when we pulled up. And to give you a flavour of the hospitality received in mainland Europe, the petrol station there basically said, don't care, call a tow truck. And we were thinking, is this the way our rally is going to go? This is going to be a bit interesting. We had enough charge. We went down to our next charging location and we got a charge there, which was lucky. So we kind of moved on. And we then made our way through various countries, Bulgaria, Romania, Hungary, and then eventually into Turkey. And this is where the charging infrastructure basically stopped. And we were relying on a 2-pin plug. So we were driving 80 to 90 miles, and for electric car owners in here, and non-electric car owners, when we get onto a 2-pin plug, it took our charging time for up to about 12 to 14 hours. So we were pulling up after 80 miles, still had battery left, but we kept that as a bit of contingency. And then we charged for about 4 to 5 hours. And we'd pull up into cafes, restaurants, car dealerships, just any building that we saw as a source of power, because at the end of the day, we're sitting here in a charge point. And that was one of the things of the rally, was to get rid of this perception that there isn't enough chargers in the country. The vast majority of people that have an electric car will charge at home, where they have access to either a charger or a plug point in their garage or inside a window. And that's what we demonstrated throughout the pretty much another 6,000 miles of this rally. But then we eventually made our way all the way to probably what I thought was going to be the scariest point, and that was Kazakhstan. So it just gives you a flavour of what we met in Kazakhstan. And we had the most amazing ferry crossing from Azerbaijan across the Caspian Sea into the first port of Aktau in Kazakhstan. It was a cargo ship, and it looked like it sunk way back in its life, and it was just brought back up from the seabed and dropped back on the water. We had a cabin with a porthole. We had a shared bathroom with Russian truckers that frequent this boat all the time. None of the doors between the cabins worked, so they were always open. So you'd be sitting in the bathroom where it was connected with the next room, and suddenly a Russian trucker would open the door while you're in the bathroom. But the toilet didn't work either, so the seat was on the floor somewhere, the shower was hanging over the toilet, so you had to have a shower standing on the toilet. So it was a bizarre experience. But we finally made it to Kazakhstan, and the great thing here, this is where our hospitality really, really changed. We put a bit of groundwork in place for Kazakhstan. We are crossing the whole of Europe yet again in this one country. It is vast. It was something in the region of about 2,500 to 3,000 miles. So we got in contact with the Kazakhstan government, and also an event that was happening there at the time, the Future Energies Conference in Astana. And they put us in touch with Kazmunagas and Kazpost. Now, Kazmunagas is a state-owned petrol company, and they operate all the petrol stations in Kazakhstan. So they agreed to install 2-pin and in some cases 3-phase charging connections in every single petrol station along our route. And the amazing thing was, when we got to Astana and we basically did a talk at the expo, we met with the CEO of Kazmunagas, and he says, I've just been inspired by your trip. I don't really know anything about electric cars, so should I just go and install charge points in every single one of my petrol stations tomorrow? If you think I should, I will do it. And it was incredible. I had to tell him to calm down a little bit and do a bit of research, but it just shows a country like Kazakhstan, you get the right people engaged, they just say, we'll do it tomorrow. And I think there's a bit of we obviously have a lot of, I'll say bureaucracy to go through, but we need to have that kind of mentality in certain areas and just go and get it done. So it was really refreshing, but we came across a lot of obstacles here, and as you can see, there's a camel in the bottom left-hand corner. And it was a strange experience to drive into a country and just pull around a corner and have a camel step out in front of you. And everywhere we go, there was camels everywhere, there was wild horses, there was goats, there was sheep. So we thought one of the issues was going to be charging. It wasn't, it was dodging these things, because they were just everywhere and they would just run out in front of you. And at night time, horses get attracted to headlights for some reason. So you'd be driving at night and a horse would just run at you. We're luckily doing 20, 30 mile an hour, so we could stop in time. But unfortunately, one team did actually take out a horse and end up in hospital, but they were safe. But up in the top there, you'll see we also got greeted. If anybody has seen The Long Way Down, The Long Way Round, with Charlie Bowman and Ewan McGregor, they got police escorts. They got greeted in every city and town they went to. Word spread that we were traveling through the country, and we got hosted in pretty much every town on the west side of Kazakhstan. And we were drinking camel's milk and horse milk, which is their national greeting. The meat people can give that. It's very tasty, to be honest with you. And we also given our introduction to a thing called bolsak. Now, it's not what I was thinking, and you're probably thinking, but it is just a little puff pastry, and you eat it with the camel's milk. So I was very pleased to hear that, because I didn't want to be eating some of those things I thought it would be. But then we crossed Kazakhstan successfully, and then we still had about 1,600 miles to cover in Russia. Now, a lot of the time we were having 30-plus hour days, because we were chatting to people at the charging locations and telling them all about electric cars and what we were doing, and chatting about the benefits of electric vehicles, and in some cases going hybrid. So we never got much time to rest. So our days would stretch out to say 30 hour plus. Then when we hit Russia, we had 10 days to get from the edge of Russia to Ulan-Ude in southern Siberia. So we, at that point, became extremely ill. I think our bodies just went, we've had enough. So we both came, myself, my wife, who was my co-driver, we came down with bad colds and flu, chest infections, but we basically just had to push on and get to the finishing line for the 9th of September, because it was a massive party. It was the last one they were having. So, and I can say we did it. But again, just to give you a flavour, I've got a quick little video that shows you some pictures from the trip, but to give you a quick flavour of some of the obscure charging locations. And this is my favourite. So picture the scene. We're driving through, we're driving through southern Siberia. You get a phone call from a random person saying, I have a charging location for you. Just follow the guy in the blue truck. So we come to the edge of this little town, and there's a truck parked at the side of the road, and there's just this little dirt track that leads through the Siberian forest. So you're following this blue truck. You don't know really who this guy is, and you're hoping he's going to give you, he's a nice guy, he's going to give you a charge. And they did. So it turned out it was the state, I'm glad the guy from Scottish Southern Energy's gone, but basically they were the state-owned electricity provider. They took us down, there was a little wooden hut, we thought, oh, we're going to charge in this hut. No, they were wiring our car directly into the electricity pylon. And we got a very quick charge, we really did. We thought we'd be there for 6 hours, we left after about 3, so it was great. And then we made our way onto the finishing line. And if anybody was following my social media, everybody knows that I like to jump. So at the finishing line, I had a little bit of an exciting jump. So we had driven 8,500 miles, and we did that in 56 days. So if we were stopping every 80 to 90 miles, and for about 6,000 miles of that, we were charging on a 2-pin plug. It shows you how much and the stress that put on our bodies was pretty impressive. But the fact is, we finished, out of 290 cars, we finished around about 212. And there was still about 60 cars trying to finish. And there's some cars that didn't even make it. So, and this car had 1 puncture and 1 buckled tyre. And that was it for the entire rally. We never serviced it, we never maintained it, we never did nothing. Just shows that electric vehicles are a lot more reliable than petrol and diesel.